Hey, what up, folks? Welcome back to the channel. Steve Maddox, Real Talk Japan here. So, my last video, I talked about my trip to Sendai in August 1992, and the weird thing about it is, like thinking about those memories, like in real deep sort of detail, like trying to recall them and vocalize and verbalize them and explain them, exactly what happened. It put me in a really good mood for ever since I shot the video and posted it, and I just thinking about those days, and at the end of the video, I'll explain in detail why. Because it wasn't just like it was a good trip or that it was fun or that I got a job. It's much deeper than that, sort of foundational. And and I think also maybe a little bit. Well, it's a crazy story, and so I think it's kind of. I hope people enjoy it. It was obviously a series of wild events. But anyway, it put me in such a good mood that I thought maybe I would make another video kind of going into a little bit more detail about some of the other things that happened that I didn't have time to explain, because there's some more weird stuff, some more kind of wild and woolly crazy stuff that happened during that trip that I thought, what the hell, I'll put on tape and put out there. So so the first night, my last video, I talked about how I stayed at this youth hostel. My first night my very first night was at the airport. So my second night, officially in Japan, was I stayed at a youth hostel in this beautiful, like old styled farmhouse kind of building, although it was relatively new construction apparently, as was explained to me. Um, and it was this beautiful building. But anyway, the way the thing was set up was, and I don't know if all youth hostels are this way, but meals were included with the fee, and so we got breakfast and we got dinner, and everybody ate in at the same time. Well, dinner anyway was at the same time, and maybe there might have been like a 1 hour or 2 hour window or something. I don't know. People coming in late could have made it to dinner, something like 6 to 7 o'clock or something like that. 5, 7 o'clock. I don't really remember. But anyway, so I got there, had that amazing bath, and really refreshing, and it was just so exciting and so exhilarating, to be in this crazy, incredible environment. But then it was dinner time, and I hadn't eaten like in 2 days, right? Like I think I had like a can of Coke or something. Maybe probably had some other, um, uh, you know, drinks that I bought at vending machines or something along the way. Because once I bought my train tickets to get to Sendai, I obviously had cashed in some traveler's checks. So I had some cash, but I hadn't had like real food in like 2 days. Right? So I was starving. And one of the things that I didn't know, this is one of the things I was not prepared for. It comes to travel. Was many things I was not prepared for, like basic things like train schedules or whatever. But um, I wasn't prepared. I wasn't prepared for chopsticks. I mean, look. My parents didn't have money, and we never went out to restaurants. Hardly ever, like pretty rarely. And if we did, it would have been something like, I mean, obviously, fast food or whatever we'd done. Um, and there might have been like one or two Italian restaurants that we'd been to, but by and large, we never did that. We didn't have money for that. So I'd never been to a Chinese restaurant. I'd never had Chinese food before. I'd certainly had never had Japanese food. So I'd never seen chopsticks. I'd never seen them physically. The only time I'd ever really seen, maybe I'd seen them in movies or something. I don't know if I've ever saw a movie before at that time where somebody was eating with chopsticks. But the only time that I can recall seeing them before this trip was in the travel guide, the Lonely Planet travel guide I had. It said, "Here's how to eat chopsticks," and had like a little drawing, whatever. I thought, well, I guess we'll cross that bridge when we come to it. So anyway, so it's whatever. It's dinner time, 5 o'clock, whatever it was, and the master calls everybody into to dinner, and it was like this kind of like a it's kind of like a cafeteria kind of setup. There's a bunch of a couple rows of tables, or whatever, and there were like seats, and then in front of each seat was a tray, and there was, I don't know, probably like 15 like young Japanese guys there, something like that, 10, 15 kids, and me. And so they all know the drill, right? And so they all come running in, and they all pick a seat, and you sit down, and you have a tray, and the tray had on it, like, it had like a bowl of white rice, Japanese sticky rice, and probably, I'm sure there was like miso soup, and maybe some pickles, and then there would have been like a some kind of meat, like probably, I don't recall ever seeing fish. Maybe there might have been fish, but that night there definitely wasn't fish. And there was like it probably would have been like pork, like a pork chop cutlet, like breaded cutlet and sliced up. I think is probably what it was. And and then like a little salad. And the salad is like a little slice of tomato, but not a not a horizontal slice, like a wedge. So a wedge of tomato and then cabbage, and there would have been like some vinaigrette on top of that. Shredded cabbage, right? That's a salad in Japan. Shredded cabbage, maybe a cucumber or two. So that's dinner, right? Now again, I haven't eaten in days, and 2 days, and I look down, and the only thing that they have for utensils is chopsticks, like the chopsticks, right? And I had no idea. I'm like, what do I do with that? Like I had no idea how to hold them or anything, right? And I'm like, I'm starving, like I'm dying, I'm about to die, and there was like green tea. So I'm looking around the people next to me, and I'm looking around like what people are doing, and they're all like they're eating, right? And the way that you traditionally eat in Japan, a meal like that, is you have the rice and you hold the rice, the bowl of rice, in your left hand, and with your right hand you can take the items that are on the tray that are on each plate, and you can put it on the rice if you want to, or you can eat that directly and then eat the rice. But they eat them together. So you put the bowl here and you put the like this, and you basically shovel the food into your mouth with the chopsticks. And so I'm watching everybody do this, and I'm just like, I'm starving, right? So I just grab the chopsticks, and I'm watching what people are doing. I kind of go, okay, you kind of hold it like this, whatever, and then I pick up the bowl, and then I'm like this, and then I start shoveling the rice in, and then I just started like taking like the pork, whatever, and putting it on top of the rice. I'm like, well, that's easy, right? So now I've only got to move the food this far, and and then and then like the tomato, like I stabbed the tomato, I put that in my mouth. Anyway, the kid sitting next to me, and it says to me, "Wow, you're very good with chopsticks." And I was like, "My first time." And he goes, "Your first time?" And I was like, "My first time, like in my entire life. I've never used them before." He's like, "Wow, you're like a professional. You've got the whole thing figured out." And I really, and actually, really, I mean, it's not that hard. It's not like this is some sort of major task. But I was like, I've got. This is one of the basic fundamental things I never expected to have to do in Japan, or to have to do on that trip was learn how to eat. I was like, how the hell I'm actually going to get these calories in my body? It was weird. But anyway, you get quick fast. You get good very fast when you need to. When you're, hunger is quite a motivator. So I remember that, and that was kind of odd. That was kind of funny. And then like later that night, or maybe like the next day, I don't remember. There was I think it was later that night. This British couple shows up. This couple of college kids. And like a couple, a guy and a girl who had taken. They said I think they said they'd taken like a year off or something, or 6 months off, and they're traveling around the world, and they had whatever, so much time, like tons of time in Japan or something like that. I don't remember. But anyway, because now Sendai is way off the beaten path. Even nowadays, I don't think very many tourists make their way up there. Maybe they do. I don't know. But certainly back then, I don't recall seeing a whole lot of foreign tourists during the time I lived there, right? So I think like realistically, only people who would have like a lot of time, and a lot of interest in traveling around Japan would wind up there, and it wouldn't be a lot of them. But anyway, that's what they were doing. So, and the funny thing was like they were less prepared than I was. was the weird thing. Like they were asking me questions about about Japan and about Sendai and stuff. And I mean, I had my Lonely Planet. I'd been there for like whatever 2 days. And anyway, so I showed them my book, whatever, and like, oh wow, that's great information, and because they were still traveling around northern Japan, whatever. So I gave them that information, whatever. And then that was it. And then I remember like the next day, like it was the next day or the day after, it was that first week. There was during that week there was what's called the Tanabata Festival in Sendai. So again, this was festival period. This is not job search time. This is like people don't look for a job in August, right? Like it's hot, and so there's festivals, and people take vacation, and the second week of August is what's called Obon, which people generally go back to their hometown. So like lots of stuff's closed, people don't work and stuff. And so anyway, the Tanabata Festival was going on in Sendai. And it's like a star kind of worship kind of festival. I don't know. You can look it up. Tanabata, Tanabata. And I think like probably lots of different places in Japan have one in the summertime. And like you see like on the train or people walking around at night, they'd have their yukata on, and they're walking around in their sort of traditional Japanese clothing, and the women would have their hair made up real beautiful, and guys are wearing yukata, and women are wearing yukata, whatever they're called. And I was like, what's going on here? I'm like right in the middle of a festival. So anyway, I don't know, it was the second day, the third day, whatever. I went down to that Sendai had this international center. I don't know if it's still there, but there was this international center that was about whatever, like a 30, 40 minute walk from the train station. And it was just this, I don't know, this building that had air conditioning and CNN on the TV and English language newspapers and billboards and stuff where people could, I don't know, exchange international information or whatever, or do, I don't know, whatever it was. So I go down there and check that out, and I'm just kind of sitting around. And I'm like reading a newspaper or something, and this woman walks up to me. It's an American woman, probably like in her 30s or something. She just asked me, what I'm doing, whatever, and I'm like, oh, I'm just, I'll tell her, I'm here, I'm looking for a job, whatever. And she says, there's fireworks tonight, and she said, you should come to my friend's house. So a bunch of us are getting together at my friend's house, which is close by, and you should come to our house and have dinner with us, and then we'll watch the fireworks together. And I was like, well, that's real generous, like, I'm like, that sounds great. And I was like, okay. And they're like, come back here, like whatever, 5 o'clock or 6 o'clock or something like that. And then we'll go over to this guy's house and we'll go watch the fireworks. And so I do. So then I get there, and then she takes me with her friends to this guy's house. This is some Japanese guy. And he's sitting there, and there's like some guy from Mongolia is sitting across from him at the table. And there's probably, I don't know, maybe like 10 people in this room. And there's food, right? And there's like whatever you want to eat, like what, I don't know what it was, but there was food. Just have whatever you want, right? So I'm eating food and drinking water, or whatever it was, or tea or something. And these folks are talking. They're having some long conversation about like the Mongolian War or something. And like this Mongolian guy was talking about, and there were people there who translated this conversation for me, so I didn't understand some of it. They were speaking in Japanese. And apparently he was worried about like another Japanese invasion of Mongolia or something like that. So they're having like this deep political, intellectual discussion or something. I don't know. Anyway. So then whenever 7 o'clock or something, whenever the fireworks started, like we all go outside and watch the fireworks. I'm like, holy crap, I'm watching fireworks in Japan. Like it was insane. And so fireworks, whatever, and I go back to the youth hostel. And here's the thing. So I don't remember the name of this organization, but I'd written it down, and I kept a journal during that trip, and I'd written it down in the journal. And years later, I found that journal, and I was looking through, and I was kind of like, oh wow, yeah, I remember doing all that. And so then I looked up the name of that group, and it was some like religious cult or something. Like it was literally like some psycho crazy religious cult or something. And I was like in this guy's house, and this guy wasn't the cult leader, but he was like, he was like, I don't know, I'm guessing he was some sort of senior person in this cult. Like I literally got like almost well, I don't know, I got a free meal out of a religious cult in Japan. Crazy. Like I was like, wow. I mean, like I had no idea the danger I just put myself into, I guess. But anyway, I remember that. And then I went to Yamagata for a couple of days, which is a small town like in the mountains and in northern Japan. And Yamagata itself isn't really all that great, but the train ride there. So the train ride is through the mountains. And so I don't know what any of this stuff means, right? I'm just like, Yamagata was a place on a map that was close by that had a youth hostel, right? Because I needed a place to stay. So so I get on this train, and it just starts heading west, through the mountains, and it's just the most amazing thing I've ever seen in my entire life. It was just these huge mountains on the side, and it's just, it's green, it's trees, it's and there's about halfway there, there's this place called Yamadera, and Dera means Tera, or shrine or temple. And so it's this mountain temple. And I don't know if it's actually a Buddhist temple or a Shinto shrine or both or something. It might be both. I don't know. But anyway, it's this mountain. It's like this temple or this shrine or a series of shrines that are like on this mountain. And you walk along the trail up around it. It's all over the place. It's like it's this up on the side of this mountain. It's incredibly beautiful. I didn't go there at that time because I didn't know about it. But anyway, it's I highly recommend it. If you ever come to Japan, like you should check out Yamadera. It's really, really amazing. So anyway, so ride to the train, and I come back, and I went through, Yamagata was this small little town that there's nothing to it. The youth hostel was like about like a 20, 30-minute bus ride out of town, and there's nothing, like it's all like out on some highway. And so one morning I had nothing to do, so I walked into town, and this guy just stopped and pulled over, and he's like, you want to ride into town? So it was like probably like an hour-long walk or so, and I'm like, I'm just gonna walk, I got nothing to do. And so this guy gave me a ride into town, and I'm going to Yamagata Station. He's like, hop in, I'll give you a ride. And he spoke English, obviously. And I'm thinking like, he probably just wanted to practice his English, I guess. But I mean, we talked for what it was, 20 minutes or something like that, and it was really nice. And I just thought, I mean, that's just like a really nice thing to do for a person. Like I'm just some guy walking down the street, and probably he wanted to practice his English, but it was just, I was like, wow, like people here are just so nice. It's like the woman on the train in Tokyo that I talked about last time who grabbed my luggage and got me off the train and got me to the bullet train, and just kind of just in general, like it just seemed like, well, and the cultists, the crazy cultists, I guess that's nice of them. I got a free meal. And just things like that. It was just like little things like that that seem to keep happening, along the way. People just sort of helping me out, and it wasn't much, but it was something. It was something nice, and I was like, Jonathan, people here are just so nice, just really friendly, and I just felt kind of, I don't know, sort of guided along, I guess, in a way. It was weird. And then like the next week, the last week that I was in Japan, I spent a few days at Matsushima, which is north of Sendai along the coast. And there's a beach there. There's a youth hostel there, and right near the beach, there's a beach there. And I met this group of people. They were like, there was like a young woman from France who didn't speak English. Shocker, she didn't speak any English. I think she spoke some German though. And there was a guy from Austria, and there was a Japanese guy who spoke English, and he was hanging out with us. And there was a woman from Scotland, like in her early 30s, I want to say, who was a doctor. And she was like, and all these people were like traveling, other than the Japanese guy, all these people, they were all traveling around the world, like that UK couple that I met earlier. And so it was just weird, like meeting these people in this place, like off the beaten path. And I'm hanging out with an Austrian guy, a French girl, a Scottish woman, and this Japanese guy. And I was like, this is just like this sort of mini UN, and a Canadian guy, and so, yeah, we was just kind of hanging out. And then we spent, like that night, we went out and watched the sunset, and sitting on the beach, sitting there on the beach and sunsetting. It's just a beautiful, beautiful night. And I thought, there's just something magical about what's going on here. Like this isn't like a normal. There's nothing normal about this. It seemed to me like it just seemed just like every single day, like, or almost every single day, like something I don't know, like unusual or like sort of special, like something memorable happened every single day. Even though I was like literally like living the life of a homeless person, and I was like, I would like, walk when I was in Sendai, I would just walk around the department stores and sometimes sit in the lobby of hotels. And well, there was one hotel in particular right by the station that I would just hang out in the lobby. I mean, they knew I wasn't a guest there. And I asked them questions from time to time, like, how do I find this place? How do I find that place? And they'd give me like a little map, and they'd put an X in the map and they'd say, go that one, whatever. So I talked to them several times, and they never complained. Like they could have kicked me out at any time, right? Obviously they knew I wasn't a guest there. But it's just stuff like that. Like it was just sort of like it was like well, I don't know. I just felt like like there was just like a real sort of kindness about the whole thing. That just seemed like every encounter that I had, every person that I met, I mean, was nice. Kind of went out of their way to help me out, and that just stuck with me. Like to this day, it sticks with me. And it's just when I contrast that with the things that I experienced when I was working here in the last at the jewelry company and whatever, just all the things that happened there, which again, most of it was my fault. But I contrast that, and I think back to that first trip. Like it really was there was something about that. There was really something was going on, it seemed to me. I don't know what, but something. Like there was a reason why I was supposed to be here, and it was almost like it was meant to be in a way, After, as I explained in my last video, after I decided I was going to leave, and I called Ian, and he was like, come down to the school and talk to Harry, and Harry offered me a job and was like, leave town. So, and as I think I said in my last video too, that I had a 1-year open return ticket. So I didn't have a return flight scheduled, which was a really, really dumb idea. Just to let you know, not smart. So, and I was running out of money. I didn't have like enough money probably for more than like a few days. So it was time to go. So after I talked to Harry, I went to the train station, and I called Korean Airlines, and they had an office there in Sendai. So I called them up, and it was like whatever, probably like, I don't know, noon or something, 1 o'clock, something, I don't really know. And call them up, and I'm like, I've got this return ticket, and I need to fly back to Canada. When's the next flight? And she goes, I can get you a flight like in September, like on September 10th or something like that. Like I'm talking like 2 weeks later, right? And I was like, no, that's not going to work. I was like, no, that's not possible. And I'm like, and I said, okay, fine. So I hung up the phone and I ran over to the office. I knew where the office was because I passed by it once before. And it wasn't far away. It was like a 10-minute walk. So I'm like literally running over to the office. There's no way. There's no way I'm going to be able to survive for another like whatever it was, 3 weeks. So I get to the office and there's a young woman there, and I just walk in. It's just me and her. And then I explained to her again in English. I'm like, no, I need to leave, and I don't have any money. I need to go back. I need to go back like today or tomorrow. Like I need to leave today. I need to get on a flight as soon as possible. And she goes, oh, okay. I said, I'm out of money. I have no money, right? And she goes, okay. So she gets on her computer. She puts out. And she goes, oh, okay. There's a flight tomorrow, leaving Tokyo. Narita Airport at like, I don't know, 3 o'clock or something. And it would have been 4 o'clock, 4 o'clock, something like that. And it would have been a flight from Tokyo to Seoul, and then Seoul to Vancouver, like a night flight to Vancouver, and then Vancouver to Toronto or Ottawa, whatever. Basically the same route back, but via Seoul. I'm like, oh my God, thank God, like, whew, like I almost died. Like I'm thinking like that 10-minute run to the Korean Airlines, I thought I was gonna die. There's no way. I don't know what I'm gonna do. I can tell you this: I could have called my parents and asked for money, but they wouldn't have been happy about it. We didn't have that kind of relationship, and so the likelihood that they would, I don't know, they would have done it. They wouldn't have let me die in Japan, but it would not have been a good thing, and I wouldn't have been able to pay them back, because I wouldn't be able to get a job for for the 3-month period that I was going to be in Ottawa. So I don't know, what was I going to do, right? So it's like that's not an easy option for me. Anyway, so she prints out the ticket, right? Gives me my ticket, and I run back to the youth hostel, get my bags, and now I got to figure out how I'm going to get to Tokyo, because the problem was I didn't have enough money because like the cost to the bullet train is like something like $150 or something like that, and then the train is like, I don't know. There's a cheap option and an expensive option. The expensive option was the Narita Express that I did the first time, which was, I don't know, something like, I want to say it was like $35 or something like that. And the cheaper option was like, I don't know, 15 or 20, something like that. So I didn't have enough to be able to get to the airport and spend a night at a youth hostel. So in other words, it's like 3 hours to get from Sendai Station to the airport, basically 3 hours. So if the flight's leaving at 4 o'clock, I mean, I don't need to be there till 1 at the, basically, if you want to be there 3 hours early. So, I mean, I could have spent the night there and then taken a bullet train first thing in the morning, and had no problem at all making the flight. And the problem was I didn't have enough money for that. So, so I go to the train station and I'm like, okay, I'm going to take the local train and I'm going to leave tonight. So I go and I talk to the Japan Rail guy, and he explains to me, like, here's the train and leaves at 7 o'clock on that track over there, and here's your ticket, and it was like $50, something like that. So and again, like I didn't understand train schedules. I didn't understand how trains work. I didn't understand how connections work. I mean, as far as I knew, I had a ticket. The train that I was going to get on was going to take me to Tokyo. That's what I understood, and I figured it was going to be all night. Like I figured it'd be like a night train, and it would just, it wasn't going to stop. And then whatever time I got to Tokyo, I'd be in Tokyo, and then I would just go to the airport. That's what I had in my mind. Unfortunately, that wasn't how it works. So I'm on the train, got my bags, I'm sitting there, and the train pulls out, and it's like whatever, 7 o'clock, 7:30, I don't know, whatever. And after about, like, I don't know, 30 minutes or so, I'm starting to kind of wonder, like, I just want to make sure that I'm on the right train here, that everything's fine. So there's a college kid, young kid, college age looking guy sitting next to me. And I show him the ticket, and I'm like, is this to Tokyo? And then he says something back to me in Japanese, which I didn't understand. And I'm pretty sure that what he told me was that I had to change trains in Fukushima. And Fukushima is about a third of the way from Sendai to Tokyo. So in other words, the ticket was valid to get me to Tokyo, but I still had to change trains in Fukushima, which I didn't know. So the train I was on was not going to take me to Tokyo. So he says this to me in Japanese, and I'm like, I was like, Tokyo? And he says it, I think he probably says the same thing again. And he realizes I don't understand, and he doesn't speak English. So about, like, I don't know, 30 minutes later or so, we pull into Fukushima. Train stops. And the guy, again, just like the woman in Tokyo, grabs my bags, grabs my two pieces of luggage, and just walks off the train. And I'm like, what the heck's going on? And he's got my bags, so I'm like, okay, I guess I'm on the wrong train. And it was one of those deals where the train, our train, came in like on the right side of the platform, and on the left side of the platform was the train that was going towards Tokyo. This one was going the other way, so you literally just had to cross the platform, and get on the train that was already there, because that train was already waiting there. But you only had 30 seconds, or like whatever, a minute. So, which again, I didn't know. So he grabs my bags, right, runs over to across the platform, goes onto the train, gets on the train, puts the bags down, and goes, Tokyo, like that. I'm like, oh, okay, wow, right. Again, this guy just saved my life. I mean, I don't know. Maybe if I'd stayed on the train, maybe I would have eventually made my way to Tokyo, probably. But I mean, like, that's just like, he didn't have to do that, and I just don't know that Japanese people would do that nowadays. I mean, I don't know. I don't know. I've never seen anything like that, in the time that I've lived in Japan since then. So again, it was just like that guy just out of nowhere just saved me, like really just saved me. It was almost like I don't know. I'm starting to get the feeling that something's going on, like there's something's going on. I don't know what it is. So anyway, so I get it. So sir, okay, I'm sitting on the train, pulls out, and again, I didn't know this, but that train stopped at a place called Koriyama, which is about halfway between Tokyo, Sendai, and Tokyo. Now, the train, that was the last stop for the night. The trains in Japan, they stop running around midnight or so, whatever. And so that was the last stop for that train, and I had to get off the train. So I'm sitting there, and then the train's not moving anymore, and I'm like, what's going on? And the conductor, comes over and says, get off the train. And I said, Tokyo, and he's like, and he points his watch or something at the clock or something, like, and I probably said, wait until like 5:30 or whatever, next train or whatever. I don't know. He didn't speak English. I'm like, okay, whatever. So there's like a little I'm there on the platform. So once again, I'm spending the night at the train station. And it's not even a station; it was just a platform. It's literally out in the open. And there was like a little shelter with two benches in the middle of the platform. So I'd like take my bags and I walk over into the platform, into the little shelter area. Sit down on one of the benches, and I'm like, well, I guess I'm spending the night here, outside. Like, I mean, I feel like I should probably be, titling these videos like, how to be homeless in Japan, like a survivor's guide or something like that, survival guide or something. I don't know, because like, anyway, so yeah, so I'm sitting there on the bench, and I'm like, I don't know when the train's gonna come. I don't know anything. So I kind of try to lie down a little bit, and then this Japanese guy comes in. Like, this guy's probably like in his 60s or something like that, and he's drunk, and he lays down on the bench across from me, and then he's sort of kind of sitting there, kind of laying there, whatever. And he goes to me, he points to himself, and goes, "Me Tokyo," and I went like, "Yeah, me Tokyo," and he goes, okay. And then he fell asleep, snores. He's like snoring like crazy. So I wasn't going to sleep anyway, but like this guy was, I don't know, maybe he does this all the time. He didn't seem to be fazed by it. He might have been legitimately homeless. Who knows? But anyway, so about like 5:30 in the morning, and this is where it gets weird. It's about 5:30 in the morning, train pulls up, and the lights come on. The lights in the platform come on. They've been turned off since the train stopped. Lights come on, and I'm like, okay, it's go time. And I'm like, I'm like, at this point, I'm just like, okay, I'm ready to just get on that plane and get out of here. I've only got a few hours left. That flight leaves at 4:00. I just got to survive to 4:00. I got to survive 11 hours, basically, right? And get to the airport. So anyway, so I get on. So train's coming in, and it says on the front, it says Tokyo, and I could read that much because it matched my ticket. So I'm like, okay, that's got to be right. I'm feeling confident now. And the conductor's there, and I'm like, Tokyo, and he goes, Tokyo, right? So I get on the train, and there's nobody on the train. It's this is the first stop for this train. It's just leaving Koriyama to head to Tokyo. And it's like a long distance train, so it's probably not a lot of stops. I don't remember how many times it stopped, but not a lot. So anyway, so it was probably about like, I want to say 5:30, 5:40, something like that when we left Koriyama. And I feel like we got into Tokyo at probably right at about 8 o'clock. And I remember that because I'm going to explain why. When I got off the train, I remember like I looked right at the clock because I was so happy to be off that train, and I remember it being 8 o'clock. Anyway, so I'm on the train and it's empty. There's nobody there, and I got my luggage sitting next to me. And I'm on a kind of the end seat, of this row, and it's it's got like, I don't know what would you call sort of lateral seats where like you, the the windows are at your back, and so it's like rows of seats along the wall. So you're facing each other, right, as opposed to like airplane style seats where you're facing the front. Not like that. Sort of your side, it's like this. So I'm sitting there, and I got the last one on this row. So I got my one of my bags. I get both my bags sitting right here, and I got my carry-on sitting on the floor, whatever. And at each stop, and I don't think there were a lot of stops, but each stop. And now Koriyama is like hell and gone from Tokyo. Like it's hundreds of miles away from Tokyo, probably. I don't know, but it's like 2 hours at least by train. Um, and so each stop, more people are getting on, and so people are getting on, whatever, they're sitting on the train, whatever, everything's fine. And then we start getting close to Tokyo, and I want to say it was probably about like the last hour, maybe 45 minutes. It started to get really crowded because now probably we're pretty close to Tokyo, and these people are commuting to Tokyo for work, obviously. So it starts to get really crowded. And then like where I come from in Canada, where I lived in Ottawa, people would ride the bus. Like the city bus is very, very everybody rides the bus in Ottawa. And so if you're waiting for a bus and the bus was full, like it looked like it was full, you just wait for the next bus. Not like that in Japan. That's not how it works here. So the train gets to a point where, to me, it's full. Like I'm thinking like there's everybody's side by side. There's no gaps between the people, right? And I'm thinking there's no way in the world anybody's getting on this train again, right? So we get to the next station, and there's a whole bunch of people there on the platform, like a ton of people on the platform. Like they're all waiting on the next train. There's no way these people are getting on this train. And sure enough, doors open, and the whole crowd just rushes in, and the people just start squeezing together, and when doors close, and then we go. And now it's like it's like people are so tightly packed, they're like this, and like no one can move, and they can't breathe, and they're kind of like they're all going like this. As the train is swaying, like the whole crowd is swaying because nobody can grab onto anything, and it's just a big mob of people, literally. I'm like, this is insane. Like the whole mob is just swaying back and forth, and I'm on the end, so I had my one piece of luggage like right here next to me, which is in everybody's way now, right? Like all the people that are standing right here by the door, they're jammed up against my luggage. So I got my second piece of luggage on my lap, and so I've got two pieces of luggage here and this one here. And it happened so fast, I didn't have time to put anything up on the rack, and now I can't move, right? I couldn't possibly move. So I'm like, this is unbelievable. And I have no idea where we are. I have no idea what time we're about to arrive. I have no idea how much longer this is going to go on. I have no idea how many more stops there are. But I'm like, this is insane. Train stops again. More people on the platform trying to get in. Doors open. And I'm like, there's no way. Like we're now way over capacity. This is probably not even safe. And that crowd pushes its way in. And the way you do it is if you can't wedge yourself in like going forward, then what you do is you turn around and you plant your heels because like under the bottom of the door, there's a door frame, obviously. And at the bottom, there's sort of like there's kind of like a little lip at the bottom on the floor. And so what they would do is they turn around and they put their heels in that lip, and then so that they have something to push against. And then they just use their legs, drop their hips, and they push their way into the crowd. And that would force the whole crowd back. And so the whole crowd then gets pushed because everybody that's in the doorway, like in the door area, they get pushed up against the door on the opposite side. So they get pushed up against that, and you can actually see people just getting squeezed up like this, and they're right flat against it. And then when the doors close, it pushes back, right? So the pressure then goes back, and so then everybody's sort of squeezed like this. Anyway, so we're heading back to Tokyo. We're on our way to Tokyo. Train pulls out. I'm like, this is insane, and the crowd was so dense that people literally couldn't breathe, and you just hear people just grunting, like like they can't breathe. They're just gasping for breath. And again, I have no idea how long this is going to go. And as the train is swerving along, like the crowd is moving along, and every time there'd be sort of like kind of like a, I don't know, a curve or something, right? Like the people, the people on one side of the train, was sort of gasp for air, and then the other people, and then it would go the other way, and people are gasping. So it was just this. It was horrible. It was the most. It was the most extraordinary display of like human suffering that I'd seen. Like to get to work, right? And maybe even of anything, I've never seen people suffer like that, physically like that, where it really looked like life threatening to everybody. I was so horrified by it. I mean, when I lived here, before, when I was in Sendai in particular, I mean, I did take the train, and it wasn't nearly as crowded as that normally. And the only time it would, but sometimes it did get crowded like that for very short periods of time, but only if there was like rain or snow or something, where a train, where basically, you know, three trains worth of people are consolidated into one train. That would happen from time to time, like maybe like once or twice a year. And even here in Osaka, sometimes that would happen for the same reason. The trains that I rode to work. But I mean, when I saw that, I thought to myself, and so I've been in situations like that, but for very short periods of time, like whatever, 10 minutes or something like that. And it's scary. I mean, it's really, where you have no control over your body, and you're just sort of standing there, and it's a moving mosh pit without the music, and with no way out. Like once you're on the train, you can't get out. So anyways, I'm sitting there and I'm thinking like, this is horrifying. And that just, it left such an impression on me that I thought to myself, I would never live in Tokyo. Never. I would never do that. And the short time that I worked at the construction company in Tokyo, I was like, I'm gonna pay whatever it takes to have an apartment that's within walking distance. And that's what I did. I walked to work. I was like, I'm not doing that. There's just no way I could put up with that. It was insane. Anyway, so we get to Tokyo, and then as soon as the doors open, everybody just rushes out, obviously, right? And they can finally breathe, and they sort of all kind of run towards whatever their next destination was, or whatever their next connection was, or whatever. People just literally ran off the train. I thought, that's insane. I never want to go through that again. I finally arrived in Tokyo, and I remember, like, I looked up at the clock, because I was like, what? How long was that? Really? And anyway, so I'm pretty sure it was like 8 o'clock in the morning. And I'm pretty sure I had like a 4 o'clock flight, so I needed to be at the airport. I wanted to be at the airport like 1 o'clock, and I'll just go there. I got nothing else to do. I'll just hang out. But that left me like some time to kill. So I dropped my bags. There was like a bag check where you could go, and you give them your bags, they give you a ticket, whatever, you go. So I dropped my luggage there, keep my carry on, and then I went to this place called Akihabara, and that's Tokyo's like famous electronics district. So I'm thinking to myself, so I had a little bit of cash left, and I knew how much the train was going to cost to get to the airport. And so then I sort of calculated back how much money I have left, and I thought, I'm going to go to Akihabara and buy like a present for myself, like something, a memento, because I hadn't bought anything the whole time. I hadn't bought anything other than food or transportation. I hadn't bought anything, and obviously youth also. So I figured out, okay, how much money do I have left? And I was like, okay, here's what I got left. So I'm just going to go to Akihabara and buy something. And so I did. And then, so I go to buy a ticket, whatever. I go to the train, and the train is packed, just like the one I just got off of. Right? And normally, if I had just experienced what I just experienced, I wouldn't have gotten on the train. Like I would have just waited till like 9 o'clock for the crowd to go away. But it's only 2 stops. It's like 5 minutes. So I'm like, I'm getting on this train. So I turn around, put my heels in the bottom, in the lip part of the door, and I just push my way on, and the whole like crowd gasps, and I'm like, whatever. I'm a freaking local, I was like, anyway, it's only a few minutes. So we get 5 minutes later, get to Akihabara, get off the train, and just walked around. And it was like, back then, it's very different now. If you go through there now, it's much more sort of comic booky, I guess is a way of putting it, or sort of, I don't know, sort of like a girl group sort of fanboy kind of thing. But at the time, it was just like rows and rows and rows of discount electronic stores, which basically they all kind of sold basically the same thing. But it was just this, at that point in time, right? At that point in the trip, like now everything's done, right? Like I know I'm getting out of here. It's just a matter of executing this last part. And I was so relaxed. I felt so good. I was like, I was going to buy something. So I kind of walked around all the stores and stuff and killed some time. And then I bought like a Sony Discman and put that in my bag. And I'm like, hey, that's my memento for this trip. And yeah, and Akihabara was just sort of mind blowing. And it was really it was just like neon signs everywhere and neon everywhere, and electronics, stuff that you would never think of, and the stuff that they have domestically is not anything that you find abroad. So So that was kind of a cool way to end the trip. So I go back to the train station, back to Tokyo, and then I go down to the cheaper option to get to the airport. I think it was called the Skyliner or something, and it was like cheaper, and it took a little longer or whatever, but it was cheaper. So I go there to buy, and I buy a ticket. I got my bags again. There, go down the Skyliner, got my bags, standing there, buying a ticket, and the guy's like, the tracks are over there, right? So I turn around to go to the tracks, and I turn around, and like standing like 15 feet away from me is that British couple that I met like that second or third night in Sendai, and they're like standing there, and they're looking at me, and I'm looking at them, and I'm like, what the heck is this? Like, how is it possible? How is it possible that I just met these people again? It was like and they were just like, well, whatever. We're back in Tokyo or whatever. We spent 3 weeks up there, and now we're up in the north, and now we're back here, and we're going back to the UK like in a couple of days, something or whatever. And I was just like, how is that possible? Like, in of all the people to run into in Tokyo, like I don't know anybody in this country, and the only few people that I've met along this trip, I happen to run into in Tokyo. It's just insane, and that was when I started like thinking to myself like this isn't normal, right? Like this is not a normal trip. And like something was going on, and I'll tell you why. I believe that because, well, not aside from the fact that it was all this weird stuff happened. When I came back and I worked in Sendai, I mean, back then you could make easily $30,000 a year in cash, right? Because there's no taxes, and I didn't pay for anything. And my only expense, I didn't have to pay for lodging or anything. My only expense was food and anything that I spent on international phone calls if I did, because otherwise everything else was covered. School paid for it. So the entire time that I lived in Japan, the 3.5 years I lived in Japan, I made over $100,000 like in cash. And because the only thing I had to pay for was food, basically, and then if I, took a trip abroad, and I did go to Canada a couple of times, that's all I had to pay for was food, basically. And I didn't do a whole lot of other stuff. And so I, pretty early on, I set my mind to just save as much money as I possibly could, and I saved well over $50,000. And that money paid for law school. So I went to law school after I was here for 3.5 years. I went to law school at the University of Arkansas, and at Arkansas at that time was like state subsidy. There was like tuition was subsidized or something like that. So even for an international student, it was really, really cheap. Like it was one of like the 5 cheapest law schools or inexpensive law schools in the entire country. And it was the only one that I could afford to go to, by the way, and get into. So that paid for law school. And then, I became a lawyer, and then, worked at international law firms for 15 years as a litigator. I made a lot of money. And again, I never had kids. So, so again, I saved a ton of money, which is why I'm retired at 54. I'm 56 now, but the last 2 years I've been retired. And when I came to Japan, in 2014, I didn't need money anymore, which is why I came here in the first place. I was like, I'm going to take time off. I don't need to do this anymore. I wanted to keep working as a lawyer, but I thought I can take the time off. And so all of that happened. And everywhere I am right now today was because I got that job in Sendai, because I went down there and got it. I went up there and got it. I made it happen. But none of it could have happened. None of it could have happened unless all that other crazy stuff happened too. And so somehow, I don't know. I'm not like a really religious person. I'm not like really philosophical about a lot of things either. I don't pretend to know a whole lot about any of that stuff. But something happened. Something happened in Sendai. Something happened in Japan in August 1992 that put me on this path and brought me here to where I am now. And so, anyway, we'll leave it there. And in my next video, I'm going to tell you about my trip back in December, where I almost got arrested in Tokyo because of Ian. Okay, all right, we'll leave it there. We'll see you all next time. Thanks for listening. Thanks for staying to the end. Thanks.